Today the old school spooky viewers will be happy because I'm going back to my roots. And I'm of course talking about a Nikkatsu Pinku film that's just sleazy, disgusting, and at points downright depressing. Today, The Girl and the House of Torture. With a title like that, you're probably expecting a film in the vein of Shogun's Joy of Torture. However, this is quite different. This is more of a drama set in the modern age about love, lust, and revenge. And lots of non-consensual sex, because this is of course a Nikkatsu production in the 1980s. However, this one is more reminiscing of the 70s Nikkatsu films in the sense that it's played straight, which leads to depression. Lots of depression. So without further ado, let's go into the synopsis of the film. The film starts with an English teacher grading some papers. He is talking to one of his students, or at least that's what the film makes you believe he's doing. However, you find out that he is really daydreaming about one of his students. That particular student is running outside. Our teacher leaves his desk to go see what's happening outside. As soon as he starts watching her, the wind decides to show us some panties. And then two bullies show up and our teacher isn't happy about that, so he goes to defend his favorite student. But his good deed doesn't go unpunished as he gets a heart attack from running too fast. While he gets his heart attack, he looks at the student's panties and he sees blood, which I guess excites him even more and fast forwards his heart attack. As he's trying to, open his pill bottle to save his life, our student is just like, yo, I'm yeeting out of here, bye-bye. She gets home to see her father and her mother in the middle of sexy time, I guess, and she goes upstairs to change and discovers that she was bleeding from the vagina. Later that night, she has a dream, and this is something we'll see a lot in this film, and those are the girl's nightmares. She has these very sexually explicit nightmares of the teacher torturing with BDSM some of the bullies and later on some other people that work at the school, like the nurse. And in that dream, she gets yelled at by the teacher and she gets, of course, something I can't say on YouTube, and she wakes up and thinks this is actually happening. You see, our student has a bit of mental problems, probably due to the fact that her parents are really fucking weird, and she's a bit weird herself too, because she's woken up by her parent having what looks like very rough and not very consensual BDSM sex, which I guess makes her feel warm down there because she goes back to her room to... And when she's, knuckle deep, her parents come into her room and, as any regular family would do, they join into the fun. Did I tell you this was sleazy? But she wakes up, don't worry, this was all a bad dream. However, I still need to remind you that she thinks our dream are reality, which will never lead into any problems later on into the film. Then we get a peek into the teacher's house life. He's getting yelled at by his wife because he crudely took a picture of the student and put it on a porno magazine. Some very early crude photoshopping skills right there. The day after, our student goes back to school, but she passes out. And then the teacher, because he's a good guy, brings her to the nurse. The nurse lifts up our student's shirt and sees marks on her chest. She asks the teacher if he punished her. And then the teacher is like, yo, I never do that. Now I'm gonna finger you. And she wakes up again and realizes that she has rope burns on her wrists. She goes back to class and hears some noises. She hides behind one of the desks and sees that the two bullies are giving shit to the teacher. They threaten him with a razor blade and one of the girls jumps on his penis. That's a family-friendly word there, YouTube, don't worry about it. The nurse enters the class and she is shocked. And the bullies blame the teacher for trying to have sex with them. And then our student goes up and she says nothing and even lies about the fact that yes, it was indeed the teacher's fault. Why? Well, first things first, the teacher is really creepy and really weird, and you can see that, you know, he has something for the student. But on the other hand, the only proof that she has that he's a creep is that she had nightmares about him being a creep. Like Biggie said, it was all a dream. I used to read Word Up magazine. And as she goes back home, that night she has another nightmare of the teacher taking revenge on the bullies and the nurse. Her nightmares are very sexually explicit. I can't really go into details or show anything really, so please imagine the worst, and that's probably not even close to reality. After that dream, we go back to the teacher's house and we can see that his mental state is dwindling down. However, he did find a new gig as a door-to-door salesman of sex toys. He does that with his associate, who looks like a total sleazeball. And the next scene shows us that the teacher isn't really a good person or that innocent. Him and his associate plan something. They go to the student's mother's house to sell her some cream. And this is of course all a ploy for them to take revenge. Our student walks in on them and she will receive the same fate as her mother. However, as the associate tries to, you know, attack her, we can see that a teacher still has feelings for her, so he defends her. They lay down on the rain, and then the movie cuts to 2 years later, where we learn that both of them were sent to prison. However, our teacher probably was a very good prisoner because he was obviously released, and the student walks in on him sleeping outside of the metro station. They walk together and talk about their past. Eventually their conversation leads to her inviting him for a drink, and he says yes because he can't run away from her. After their little party, he's really drunk and she books them a hotel, a BDSM love hotel. She lays him down on the bed and starts talking about her dreams and how all of her dreams are reality, and that's why she didn't help him with the bullies. That's logical, and that sexual tension that's been building up since the beginning of the film eventually leads to the final sequence of Shibari. And I can't go into too many details about the last sequence because I like my YouTube channel and I want to keep it, but let's just say that it puts Fairy in a Cage and Flowers and Snake to shame. It's explicit. If you're into BDSM, this is for you. And after their little thing that apparently lasted 3 days, that's a lot of sex, they talk about how their life was. And let's just say that the girl starts to be delusional again and falls in love with him. But he's like, yo, I've been going through hell, partly because of you. Mainly because of him, but you know, he doesn't see that. I don't want anything to do with that. This was just fun. And she's like, no, fuck you. And then they fight because their relationship is very, very not toxic. Eventually, this leads to the man finally having a heart attack, and she's still delusional, so she thinks, oh, I'm gonna help him out. And how does she help him? Piss in his mouth. The man is having a heart attack and you're like, yo, I'm gonna piss in his mouth, that's gonna revive him. And then he peacefully dies and the film ends. What did I think of it? I really don't know. I'm gonna need more time to think about it because on one hand, this is a very well done, played straight, depressing piece of debauchery. And on the other hand, it was a bit boring. It's a bit long, it takes a sweet time, it's only 1 hour and 8 minutes and it feels so much longer. However, this still has Nikkatsu shot on film, early 80s, late 70s types of vibes. And honestly, for a film like this, a Pinku film that was just there to show you TNA, it goes into some pretty dark subjects and explore them very well. Am I going to rewatch this in the future? Probably not. This was far from being the masterpiece that Fairy in a Cage, Flower and Snake, and Shogun's Joy of Torture was, but it's still pretty good. And if you're into this rope art shibari BDSM thing, it's a great example, and those scenes are very well done. Anyways, thank you for watching and see you guys next week.